Okay, so students, we are about to begin our course, the day 5 of our course on gender studies. And today we are honored to have with us Dr. Otojit Kshetrimayum from Vivigiri National Labour Institute. Sir is a fellow and also the head of Center for Northeast at Vivigiri. And we will formally begin the session now. And over to you, Malika, for the introduction and other things. Thank you
Thank
very
you so much, ma'am. Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to all of you today for day 5 lecture based on the theme of identity, equality, and gender justice. I'm Malika Kukreja, and I will be coordinating the 2 lectures for today, which are a part of the ongoing certificate course on gender studies being organized by the Forum for Democracy in collaboration with Department of Political Science and Internal Quality Assurance Cell, Mata Sundari College, University of Delhi. Let me give you a little brief about the topic today. The issue of gender justice aims to redistribute power, resources, and opportunities to all men and women equally without discriminating them on the basis of their gender. The goal is crucial for the attainment of gender equality that is not only a fundamental right of every human, but it also determines the identity and representation of nearly half the global population, which consists of both women and girls. The goal of gender equality extends as well to the sexual minorities, and it is enshrined in the UN Human Rights Declaration. Hence, the identity as a female or a transgender or another minority which has been undermined due to many social, political, and economic factors must be corrected through goals of gender equality and justice, as will be underlined in the lectures today by our esteemed guests. The first part of this lecture will be held from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. and will be delivered by our expert and well-informed resource person, Dr. Otojit Kshetrimayum, who will approach the theme of identity, equality, and gender justice from the perspective of Northeast India. Dr. Kshetrimayum is a fellow faculty and coordinator, Center for Northeast India at Vivigiri National Labour Institute, Noida, under Ministry of Labour and Employment, Government of India. Sir has vast experience in working in the fields of labour and employment, social protection and livelihood security, skill development and entrepreneurship, informal economy, gender and work, self-help groups, and many more. He has also worked as Senior Fellow in Women's Studies and Development Center, University of Delhi. He has represented India in the Forum on Women's Labour Force Participation and Productivity Enhancement at the Asian Productivity Organization, Tokyo, and also Forum on Innovations in Public Investment and Employment Programs at the International Training Center, ILO, Turin. He has published several books and research papers in reputed national and international journals, and has also undertaken several projects at Vivigiri National Labour Institute. A hearty welcome to you, sir, for giving lecture to our students today. Before I begin with the session, I would like to outline a few rules for our students. Please keep your audio on mute until you want to speak. This will help in limiting background noise. If you would like to speak or answer any question, use the raise hand feature, after which you will be asked to unmute yourself. If you would like to use the chat box, please use it carefully as it is a public forum and a chat of the record is kept and archived. Please be an active participant. All the questions shall be taken at the end of each lecture. Make maximum use of this learning exercise. Now I would like to cordially invite Dr. Kshetrimayum to begin with the session. Over to you, sir.
Okay, thank you so much, Malika. So before I start, I think I will try to share my PPT from my desktop. Okay. So is it visible, my PPT? Yeah, please check.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. All right. Okay, some students are trying to enter, I think. I think Suchi is not letting them in.
No, we are letting them in, sir. They are all
Okay.
trying to enter.
No, please do admit them, yeah?
Yeah,
no problem.
Yeah.
All right, so a very good evening to everyone. So definitely, I think this is going to be the last technical day of the module 1, I suppose. Right, so I was just going through the module, so I think my lecture is part of that module 1 on introduction to gender. So students, like, I mean, it's very interesting to be interacting with the students, because it has been long that I was there in Sikkim Central University, and we were the few faculty members who started the department, yeah, about 10, 12 years back. So it's a kind of a nostalgia that, I mean, I have been, because although I'm part of the National Institute, but we do not have regular programs as you have in the universities. But I love to interact with the students, and Suchi was one of the students who came to my institute and part of my like the training program. So definitely, so it's really lovely to interact with the students. So before we start, so let me have a small exercise in the sense. So let me see if all are active, or no one is sleeping or dozing or engaged in some other switching off the mobile phone but engaged in some other work. So let me have a small exercise if you if Sushi would permit me. All right. So what we do first is let's have a kind of a small clapping exercise. That means I will try to clap. All right, I will clap. Then when you hear the sound, you should reply back in the chat box, whether I clap 1, 2 times or 1 time or 3 times, whatever may be. All right. So just to see the attention, or that just to keep all the participants in the meeting hall, in the Zoom meeting hall. All right. So I want your attention, full attention in the meeting hall. Since we cannot see you virtually, I mean, this is not a direct face-to-face interaction, so it becomes very difficult to because we have been engaging direct face-to-face interaction, training program, classes, sessions, but because of this COVID pandemic, we are experiencing another new normal as we generally what we call as the. Let's start with my mind exercise. Okay, everyone, attention, please. So please type in the chat box. Please type in the chat box. Not don't clap. Please type in the chat box 1, 2. All right. If I have clapped once, you have to type 1, or you can show the emoji, hand emoji. All right. Right. Let's make it a little bit different from the normal classroom, because you don't have such kind of exercise in the classroom. So let it be a little bit away from, because this is a kind of a certificate course, a little bit different from the normal graduate program. So let's have some kind of different experience. All right. Should we check if people are doing right or not? Yes, I haven't clapped. Good, good, very good. I was trying to seek your attention. All right, great. Thank you so much. So, friends, the topic that I was given is identity, equality, and gender justice, a perspective from the Northeast. I being from the Northeast, I think there may be some students from the Northeast also. All right, so I will be trying to share the experiences of the region that I belong to, some of the observations, some of the reflections that and some of the works that I have done throughout these years. So I will try to share my experiences, my research, my work with all the students out here. So firstly, I just wanted to recap what is gender. All right, so just to recap what you had done throughout all these 1 week, past 1 week or so. So please type in the chat box, what is gender? Just quickly. Yeah, where's the chat? Okay. Yes. Gender, what is gender? Yes, gender, what is gender? Define gender. Yeah, it's a social construct, very good. Dhwani Pandit, all right. Gender is a social notion, okay, of sex. Gender is a social construct, okay. Wonderful, wonderful. All right, gender is an identity given by the society. All right, social construct, all right. Gender is, yeah, okay, gender is socially constructed identity given to males and females. Okay, gender is what we choose for ourselves. Okay, wonderful, wonderful. So that means my students are all knowledgeable, huh? Good. All right, so yes, definitely there's a difference between gender and sex. All right, so basically when you talk about sex, it's basically a biological construct. But when you talk about gender, we are referring to a social construct. I think this has been discussed quite often, I mean, during this whole program till now. Yes, gender is a social construct. That means you agree that gender is a social construct. So this is what I want to emphasize on this. That means you agree that gender is a social construct. That means How it is proved? All right, that means we have already made the statement that gender is a social construct. So how do we analyze? We try to prove this particular statement that gender, the idea of gender, the concept of gender is social construct. That means it is a social construct. It is being constructed by the society. Society means by the people. Then what is society then? Society we used to learn, because I'm a student of sociology. So it's a web of social relationship. All right, you have this world wide web, right? You use smartphone, Facebook, Insta, all right, all those WhatsApp. All right, so we are connecting with the people in different parts of the globe. That is world wide web. So likewise, society is nothing but a wave of social relationships. We have various relationships, all right, between parents and children, students and teachers, all right, management and the employees. That means we can explain in n number of social relationships. And that relationship, that social relationship that exists between different social partners or different categories of people form the society. Am I right? So it is a web of social relationship. All right? That means you try to define society. And within the society, people are there. We are here in the society. All right? And we have this concept of culture also. What is culture? Culture is nothing but a design for living, right? That means the way we dress, the kind of food we eat. All right, so whatever, all right, the kind of constructions they do have, all these are part of the so-called culture. And you have different categories of culture. All right, you can classify different cultures into different categories. All right, I'm not going to tell you to that. So culture is basically the design for living. And definitely whatever norms, whatever traditions, whatever values that we have in the society are created by the people only, by the society only. So the kind of culture, the kind of norms, the kind of traditions that we have in one society may be different from other society. All right, what may be good in one society may be bad for other society. Am I right? So that means it exists because culture is a social construct. All right, so likewise, when you talk about gender, you already know about it. That is a social construct. The way we design or way formulate, okay, this is what sort of masculinity, this is what we term as femininity, this is what the gender roles is about. That means a girl should be behaving the way a boy should be behaving. All right, these are all part of that social construct. This is clear so far, so good? Yes, please type in the chat box. Yes, no, why? Yes, why for yes, and for no. All right, please type in the chat box. Everyone should, okay, all the 78 people should type in the chat box so that so she can see everyone is active in the class. All right, no one is sleeping in the class. All right, good, good, good. 31, 32, 33. Where are the others? Okay, your course director is checking everything. All right. All right, she is a very intelligent, very smart, all right, hardworking, all right, lady. So she is checking everything, all right, sitting there. She's also taking part in the discussion, I mean, in the classroom. All right, so please be attentive, be active in the class. Whatever doubts you have, all right, we can discuss at the end of the my discussion. All right. So this is, I mean, when you talk about, as I said, when you coming to the concept of gender, so gender is a social construct. So that means we are trying to see this concept of gender from the perspective of identity, from the perspective of equality. And if you talk about labor, from the perspective of work also. All right, that means how do you conceptualize this gender from the perspective of identity, equality, then from the from the perspective of occupation or from the perspective of labor also. That means we can segregate into different perspectives. That means the way we look at. All right, there are different ways of looking at. All right, so but because it's a very, very vast subject, so I wouldn't be able to discuss everything within this 1 hour because and I have only 45 to 50 minutes of of my lecture, so it will be very difficult. If she permits me, when she gives me about 3-4 hours or so, someday some webinar and all, then I will try to explain and discuss with you all in a more detailed, comprehensive manner. But coming back, all right, so this is what gender is about. That means we could differentiate between the concept of gender and sex. This is very clear. All right, so we have made a statement that gender is a social construct. That means it has got so many meanings. All right. It means how do we interpret it? The power relationships. All right. Who is controlling what? Whom? All right. So this is all the the kind of the whole game that is going on. All right. Who controls whom? Who controls what? The power relationship. So it comes into play. All right. So the next thing that I would like to hear here is, yes, true, gender is a product of society and culture. All right, definitely it's a product of society and culture. That means the concept, the idea is being gender. It's not something that someone from alien country, from UFO coming, all right, one alien Jadu is coming and creating the society and culture and whatever gender. Oh, this is gender, this is what, this is male, female. It's not. I mean, we, the people who are living a part of that society, all right, is creating, that means is formulating that idea. All right, what is good, what is bad, all right, what is acceptable, what is not acceptable. All right, so that means whatever experiences that we have in our society are all being decided or created with, that means some sort of it was existing since before. That means once we were born, we could see, okay, all those structures being already laid down before us. And it is not our what you call, it is not our option, or it is not our what do you call, that means we cannot have the privilege of selecting in some sense, because some are hereditary, some are ascribed, some are achieved. You talk about status, ascribed status, and the achieved status which would be achieved, status which are ascribed, like caste is an ascribed status. You cannot change it because it is being given to you. All right, but we talk about profession, it is something achievable. All right, that's what it's called, achieved status. All right, so I'm not going into detail into that. So you talk about society, we talk about culture. That means society, culture. So that means we are trying to relate with gender, the idea of society, the idea of culture. All right, okay, this is clear to everyone? Okay, so we have also defined, we have also made the distinction between sex and gender also, and this is very important. All right, and I think since day one you have been discussing about gender. I think when you eat, also when you think, when you sleep also, I think you must be thinking about gender, because Suchi has created such a program, such a design, such a module that she wants all the participants, around 90 students to think about gender only. All right, think about gender, you eat gender, every day you think about gender. All right, so that your mind, it gives you some kind of reflection. Okay, what is going in the society? That means the kind of structures that we are in. So whether good or bad, that means it is giving you some amount of food for thought, trying to reflect on it. All right, that means when no one is judging it's good or bad, but trying to make a difference, because you're all young students in the graduation. So it is, I was telling her that it is the right time to have such kind of certificate programs, so that the youngsters, all right, instill some kind of an idea, some kind of thought process about the structures that we have. All right, so that means we need to learn, whether you accept it or not, whether you deny, whatever maybe, it depends on the individual. But the idea of this existence of these structures is very, very to understand that, to know about this existence, all right, to know about the structures is very, very important. All right, so that structures needs to be clearly understood. All right, so that's the whole idea. So coming to the stratification is also important. You see, the society, the society is we have a stratified society. We have a caste system where the society is stratified into different castes. So likewise, when you have this gender stratification is what? It's dividing into different layers. All right. So when you talk about gender stratification, because I am just giving you some small concepts, very fundamental concepts, so that you are all BA students. All right. So these concepts you must have gone through in your books and all them, never mind. So, but for others who are from some other disciplines, all right, so they may not be aware of this concept. So just to give you some background, so that we can when I discuss about other case studies, and also it makes it very clear to you, okay, what I was discussing. Otherwise, everything will be over your head. So gender stratification is basically the unequal distribution of wealth, power, and privilege between men and women. Right, right. We are talking about gender stratification. So you could say, so that means when you understand this concept of gender stratification, then you try to see, okay, unequal distribution, what, wealth, power, privilege. Okay, so then you try to reflect it, understand it. When someone defines, because I have not defined this, someone has defined this, all right, someone has given this a definition, or like, no, someone has quoted this, all right, but it is up to you, that means whether these things are really existing. That means what kind of structure are existing in these terms. All right, so that means it is for you to reflect upon. All right, it is you to experience what is going on in the day-to-day life. All right, is it really happening? Is it not happening? How far is it happening? Like, is it happening within, within one family or not, within your life or not? So that means it gives you some kind of reflection and understand the structures that is existing or that is not existing. All right, so that means you can argue in one way or the other. All right, so coming back, the concept of patriarchy. All right, so patriarchy, you know, the patriarchal structures, that means male dominance. All right, the systemic social structures that institutionalize male physical, social, and economic power over men, over women also. All right, so that means the idea of patriarchy is that because patriarchy, I'm discussing about matriarchy is also there, concept-wise patrilineal is there, concept-wise matrilineal is there. All right, so just to see from the perspective, that means the kind of discussion that we are having is to understand this, like when you talk about gender stratification, because mostly we find that there is discrimination, all right, against women. All right, so that means generally we find that. All right, so when you talk about, I'm not saying that like, no, I mean, everything is being like, what we call woman-centric, or specific, the stratification has been like, like detrimental to the women class, but generally, all right, so we find that, I mean, in the literatures, like in all this discussion, we generally find that this kind of like what we call occurrence is there. So next idea is gender roles and gender relations. Now this is important. So the kind of roles you have different roles. All right, you can act in any play, in Shakespearean play, in any sort of like plays, skit and all. So likewise in our life also we have gender roles, attitudes and activities that the society links to each sex. All right. So when a child is born, when a boy is born, he is not given a baby doll. All right. He will be given a kind of a bat, cricket bat, or a gun, or a football. All right, so that means the process of socialization has started the moment a child is born. All right, that means physically. All right, so it's a boy, it's a girl. So that means we start assigning, all right, being a girl, being a boy means, okay, he or she should be doing that. He or she should be giving this such kind of toys. All right, so that means it is being programmed slowly, because when a child, when a person is born, nothing is there, or nothing is there in the sense that everything learns when he comes out. All right, when he is there in the society. All right, so that means whatever he is doing, he is thinking, basically are from from what he or she has experienced from the environment, from the milieu that he or she is there. All right. Am I right? The environment that he or she belongs to. All right, that means he or she is learning from that. So the attitudes and the activities that a society links to each sex, that means being a girl means this, okay, he or she, she should be doing this. Being a boy means he should be doing that. So the role has been specifically specified, right? So that means role has been given. I mean, and you don't have the society, the community. I mean, the structure was already designed in such a way that, okay, being a woman, being a girl means, okay, your role is there. Being a boy means your role is there. All right, so that means this is what we are we are referring to, the idea of construction, the social construction. All right, then when you talk about gender relations, hierarchical relations of power between women and men that tend to disadvantage men generally. Tend to disadvantage women. So hierarchical relation, the hierarchy, the existence of hierarchy, all right, of power between women and that's the gender relation, and it tends to disadvantage women. So gender, you talk about gender roles, you talk about gender relations. So with these concepts, all right, I will be trying to take up some case studies, all right, for you to understand more vividly, more clearly, all right? And as I said, to cover such such a comprehensive what you call concept or area within 1 hour is very difficult. But just to make you understand few of the points, all right? Just like we are trying to relay, or I'm trying to give you some case studies so that it becomes more easier for, and this is the notice experience that I'm going to share with you. All right, so this is clear. So far so good. All right, so far so good. Yeah, please type in the chat box. Yes, no. Yes, please type in the chat box. Yes, no. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. So all right, all right. So I was just checking the time. Okay, 4:24. All right. Great. Then another concept, before I move on to my case studies, is socialization. What is socialization? Is the process of learning. All right. It is the process of learning what? Learning the culture, what is accepted in the society. All right. That means you are learning those cultures, those traditions, those value systems which are being accepted by the society, right? So socialization is a process. And when you talk about gender socialization, it is the process of socialization which teaches children their gender role. So we talk about gender roles now, right? We discuss about gender roles, and now it is about socialization. That means the role has been defined. Okay, being a boy, this, being a girl, this. Now the society is making you socialize. Oh, you are being a boy, you do this, you learn this, you see this, all right, you adapt to this. All right, so that means once your roles are being identified, then the process of socialization starts. That means you are learning the way of life. All right, what you have been what you call assigned, or what you have been ascribed, or what you have been given. All right, so this is how the gender roles are also inculcated, or are being taken into the as part of one's life. All right, whether being a boy or being a girl. All right, then interestingly what happens is, for us, for here to discuss on this identity and this gender justice. All right, so what is important for us to understand again here is traditional gender roles have a great influence on gender relationship in the society. Yes, when you talk about gender roles and gender relationship, the process of socialization, making people to learn, all right, trying to learn the way of life, being a boy or being a girl. So that means that was already assigned, that was already been given, let out in to us. All right, then comes what are the roles that play, or what are the significance, all right, or what are the implications of the traditional gender roles. I'm talking about traditional gender roles. So what are these influences? All right, what are these implications on the gender relationship? This is very important. That means how the value system, the traditional value system, the traditional gender roles have a great influence on gender relationship in the society. That means the kind of relationship that we have, all right, when you have the men and women, all right, when you talk about the gender relationship. So how do traditional gender roles influence this gender relationship in the society? All right, so this is what I'm going to examine by taking up some case studies for you to understand more vividly. And this is what the notice experiences that I'm going to share with you. All right, so okay, before I move this now, now half an hour is almost gone, or 28 minutes gone. So so let me have a small exercise now, so that because halfway is already done, so that I try to wake up all the participants out of my fellow my students out here. All right, so what we do is, all right, quickly, in Manipuri, how do we say Kurumjari? All right, so I'm going to teach you how do you greet in Manipuri, because I belong to Manipur, I'm from Nepal. All right, so in Manipuri, what we greet like in Namaste. All right, Namaste, we greet what? Kurumjari, Kurumjari, Khurumjari, Kurumjari. All right, then in Khasi, In Khasi in Meghalaya, all right, they say Kublai. Khublei, Kublai. So that means how do you greet? Hello, good morning. All right, so that means how do you wish? All right, so quickly, when I say Kublai, you say Kurumjari. When I say Kurumjari, you say Kublai. All right, come on, fast. All right, so I have only 1 minute for this. All right, so everyone, come on, Kurumjari. Please write in the chat box. Please write in the chat box. All right, Kurumjari means Kublai. Right, come on, fast. I think very few people are typing in the chat box. When I say Kurumjari, you write Kublai. Kublai is the way we greet in Khasi language. All right, Khasi from Meghalaya, in Meghalaya. All right, so Kublai. When I say Kublai, you say Kurumjari. You write Kurumjari. I think everyone is confused with the spelling, I think. All right, Kublai, Kurumjari. Okay, no problem. So you know this. Kurumjari in Manipuri, how do they mean? If you have any Manipuri friends, you can greet them Kurumjari. If you have Khasi friends, you can greet them Kublai. All right, that's great. So let's get back to the case studies. All right. So when you talk about these traditions and gender relations in Northeast India, these are very interesting. All right. And some of you who may be from Northeast are aware of this, these metaphors. All right, this is not something I have created. Okay, these are something that has been quoted in some of the texts, and these are being the social practices that is there in each of these communities. All right, so metaphors of woman. So in that, okay, the Jelarong Naga, I mean, it's not he, okay, this is to be spelling typo. The Jelarong Naga men believe that sleeping with one's wife before going hunting may bring bad luck to the whole group. All right, so this is kind of metaphors of woman. The Jamai Naga males are forbidden to touch the meat of an animal killed by a woman, as it is considered that touching the meat would be below their dignity, because bravery is a quality of man and docility that of woman. All right, so I have shared the PPT with Dr. Sushi, so you can take the PPT later on. All right, then among the taboos in Manipur, there are certain gender taboos such as a woman should not yell in public, a woman should not climb over ropes, trees, etc., because ill luck will fall upon a man if he walks below a woman's clothes line also. So these are some of the metaphors. The traditional attitude towards Mar women are reflected in the sayings such as Numhai Varintukur, Ralekai Ngai Hono, which means that the wisdom of a woman does not extend beyond the bank of a river. So you see the metaphor? I think in most of the cultures you have these metaphors, but I'm just trying to give you that is there in the Northeast, and even among the Mijos also. There are also certain sayings, such as a woman and all friends can be replaced anytime. Right, you see, you try to examine these metaphors. All right, you just go through this, you just read these metaphors and see. That means you can reflect, because what? Culture is the reflection of the society. All right, so that means what is there reflects the society. So when you talk about gender equality, when you talk about women empowerment, so many of us, or many of our friends in the North and all right, so they generally say, okay, oh, women in the North are quite empowered. There is equality. But if we try to examine it, all right, we could see a lot of so a little bit of opposite structures that is happening. So that's this kind of metaphors. All right, so it is not always the pastures are not always green, because there are certain structures, existing within the society, which proves that patriarchy is very much existence. All right, that so the structure, the patriarchal structure is very much existent within the Nordic society also. All right, so then some more in traditional Garo society, women are ridiculed with the saying that just as a god is without teeth, so a woman lacks brain. The Mayon Nagas of Manipur considers women as having no principles, since women are considered to have no permanent clan, as her clan changes into that of her husbands after her marriage. The Khasis in Meghalaya also had the sayings that if the hen crows, the world, including the family, will change for the worse. So these are some of the metaphors that we could see, that means as part of the culture, all right, as part of the cultural system, all right, so we could see such kind of metaphors with respect to women are there. So that means we can always examine the kind of status, the kind of the idea of women that we have in the society. So that means what I'm trying to highlight here is above the over, that means overtly you see that, okay, women are like, no, in the economic work, so many women are into economic, like, no, economic activity. They are doing a lot of, like, they are earning, there is, I mean, there are women who are like, no, doing a lot of economic activity. So women are empowered economically, but within that structure, we could see such, like, no, such structures within that. That means within that larger structure, there is more, like, you know, substructures within that, and which also, like, you know, this empowered the woman. All right. Then such kind of metaphors substantiate, I mean, it's a kind of substantiation of the historical role ascribed to the woman. Okay, woman is kind of so-called the second sex. All right, or the third, or the second sex. I mean, generally we refer to it as the second sex. All right, and it also serves as justification for the distorted and stereotyped construction of gender practices in the society. All right, so such kind of metaphors that we have in the society, they are substantiation of the historical role ascribed to the woman. It also serves as justifications for the distorted and stereotyped construction of gender practices in the society. All right, now let's talk about another interesting customary traditions that we have, the customary law. All right, I think many of you may be knowing about this concept, customary law. So it's part of the tribal traditional customs and practices, why the tribes consider it intrinsic to their identity and culture, customary law. All right, related to customs. So they deny them, I mean, customary laws deny them equal rights to property and inheritance. That means women, which is one of the important factors affecting their empowerment. That means the customary laws that are existing in the society deny the woman equal rights to property and inheritance, and which is one of the important factors affecting their empowerment. And customary laws in matters of marriage and divorce also are far from favorable to women. And you always talk about, the topic says about gender justice. All right. So that means we can always relate this. So the customary laws in matters of marriage and divorce are far favorable to women, are far from favorable to women. And you talk about bride price, and there are different ways of looking at this bride price, and it's very interesting. All right. You talk about bride price, that is a part of the culture in many of these societies in the Northeast. It prevails among the various communities in Northeast India, where the bridegroom has to pay a certain amount of money to the girl's parent. And it is believed, I mean, some of the literatures say the bride price, the idea of bride price is basically to accept, to recognize the economic activity of the role of economic activity of the woman, because they recognize that, okay, woman is definitely contributing to the economy, or they are performing like economic activity. So in order to, like, what you call, make the payment, that means you're considering the woman as one of the contributors to economic activity. So you are paying a price for taking that particular bride. All right. So but despite the fact that this kind of arguments are there, interpretations are there, but nevertheless, it also created some kind of a different story. Like, I mean, they are considered as some kind of a commodity, because I mean, there are different ways of reading. All right. So that means this is what the construction is about. That means some of the scholars may be functional to the bride price, some may be bifunctional or Marxian way of looking at this, the conflict theory, a way of looking at this bride price also. So there are different theories of looking, I mean, they have different way. So it depends on the kind of glass that you are wearing. All right, so you wear the functional perspective or the Marxian perspective, or the hermeneutics or Weberian perspective. So it all depends on the kind of glass, because but I'm wearing a different glass. All right, I am neither functional nor Marxian. All right, I am just Dr. Otojit. All right, okay, just kidding, huh? All right, so now coming to the idea of occupational stratification of weaving in Manipur. All right, so what we see here is, this is very interesting, and this is one of the, this is based on my PhD work that I have done research on handloom weaving in Manipur, because I want to share with you this interesting, because before I started my research work, I was also not aware, but when I did research, when I read those literatures, then I started observing, I started getting all this information, new structures that is there in our society, in my own society. All right. So what I observe is that handloom weaving plays a very significant role in the Manipuri society, in the Manipuri economy. All right, and it is a kind of it's a part of the culture. We talk about handloom weaving. All right, so it's part of the culture. But when you observe, when you examine this particular handloom weaving, you could see there is segregation of weaving according to sex. There is weaving as an occupation in social hierarchy, and there is feudalization of weaving because Manipur being a kind of a ruled by the kings and not by the series of kings. All right, so we have this feudalization of weaving craft. We have this secret. So that means these are very interesting, what you call observations that we got from the research that I have done. So interesting, what happens is when you talk about segregation of weaving according to sex, it's very interesting that we talk about Benares handloom industry, you talk about Kanchipuram, you talk about Chandori. Most of the weavers are men, all right? Most of these weavers are male weavers. But in the case of Manipur, what we see is 99.9% of the weavers are women. And there is a reason for that. And that's why I say there is a segregation of women according to gender or according to sex. Because the structure is like this, the tradition is like this, the value system is like this. All right. So in contrast to other parts of India where weaving is primarily carried out by men, in Manipur, weaving is entirely the work of women. But now the structure is changing slowly. There are men weavers now. There are male weavers. But when I interviewed with 10 years back, 15 years back, when I went to the field and all, when I to the village and all, they're interesting stories. The man wants to be a weaver, right? He is a very good weaver, handloom weaver. And because of the societal, stereotypical prejudice, all right, towards these men weavers, he used to weave inside the house and during nighttime, midnight, so when everybody slept. All right, so that nobody knows that who is doing the weaving, who is weaving. All right, from outside to know, everyone can his mother or his wife may be doing this weaving work and all. But they are master class. They are master they are master weavers with intricate design. They know the art of they have these intricate designs and all. But because of societal what you call prejudices or stereotypical attitude toward the men weavers, they were not. They feel shy. They did not. Want to come out because of these structures that we have. So this kind of structures are. But now slowly. This structure that we could see male weavers coming in our society. And according to mythology, so it was the supreme goddess who introduced the art of weaving. It's very interesting. So it says, the mythology says, it was the goddess. It was the goddess, all right, who introduced the art of weaving. So that means in the mindset, well, the goddess. So that means, okay, it is associated with women, the goddess. All right, that means this particular art was introduced by a goddess. In the community ritual of Blai Harawa, this is the ritual festival. All right. The art of weaving is being socialized. That means when she danced during this ritual festival, she taught or she teaches the girl, those who are watching, the audience, about how to do the weaving. Because the whole process of cotton, rearing of cotton, cultivation of cotton, all right, cultivation of cotton, then all those taking out all those cotton thread, and then about all this weaving process. These are all being depicted in the form of dance. All right, so this is also socialization. That means you are trying to socialize the girl child, the art of weaving, meaning that all the girls should be knowing the art of weaving. And traditional days, it was not a question that the bride's family asked to their bride, the bridegroom's family asked to their bride's family. So it is whether the girl knows the art of weaving or not. That's the kind of criteria, that's the kind of qualification that generally they used to ask during those traditional society. But time has changed, definitely it's not the case nowadays. So it was a practice for the parents to give a set of weaving apparatus for their daughter as an indispensable part of the marriage gift on her wedding. All right. And when selecting a girl for daughter-in-law, the Meitei parents gave priority to the prospective bride's proficiency in the art of weaving. So in those traditional days, weaving was given because there was no other alternative. There was no no other occupations All right, so basically handloom was one of the major occupation that people generally engage with, women engage with. Women who do not possess adequate knowledge and skill in weaving are viewed as lacking in the quality of womanhood. This is important. And for that matter, they do not have the source of wealth and prosperity. So the idea of wealth and prosperity with the craft, they are associating. That means if a girl doesn't know the art of weaving, so she is considered to be like lacking the quality of womanhood. And for that matter, they do not have the source of wealth and prosperity. All right, you could always see the inequality, all right, the justice. There's also a reserved room called Ningolka, that means daughter's room in every traditional Meitei household, and men consider weaving as an activity exclusively for women. And interesting, what I want to say here is, and it is like a taboo. I don't know in other cultures whether you have this in taboo, that means to touch the women's cloth also. It's a taboo. That means you cannot touch the what you call the sarong, the wrap around. It is considered to be a taboo, and that's what I said. No, when you cannot pass through the women's cloth line lying above, that means a man cannot pass through that particular women's cloth line because it is considered to be a taboo. All right, so that means these kind of structures are there within the society. So how do you look at this? All right, apart from you said, okay, women are are empowered in terms of economic empowerment, but on the other hand, the society, the structure, the culture, the traditions are really taking a different story. They're taking to a different side. All right, then these are some of the processes. All right, these are some of the how do you start with the loin loom. All right, then throw shuttle room. This is how the development. It started with the loin loom, then started with the throw shuttle, then it started with the fly shuttle. So then now we have jacquard and also new power loom. So that means the evolution. Then it's also very interesting. You see the evolution of the weaving craft. All right, how they started traditionally. So this is the no modern fly shuttle room, fly shuttle loom. All right. So these are the products that, and many of you may be knowing about the traditional, handloom products and all. All right. So now last point that I would like to highlight here is about the Maibi cultures that we have. All right, the Maibi culture. Maibis are the female priestesses. Priestess. Have you heard about female priestess? You have heard about the pujaris, the brahmins. All right. Then you have heard about this male priest, my male priest. But now in the society, we have the female priestesses. And it is associated with a traditional religion called Sanamahism. All right, and this is not shamanism. So it's something related with shamanism. We have Sanamahism as a traditional religion, right, in Manipur among the Meiteis. And shamanism is something associated with shamanism. All right, it's one of the traditional belief systems whose emerging manifestation is being observed today in various society. The shamans, we talk about the shamans, right? In Korean, I have done a research on Korean shamans and the Manipuri shamans. So these are very interesting. So Maibism is a pre-Hindu religion of the Manipuri. That is the Sanamahism, and it does not have a systematic structure. And the interesting thing is, Maibi culture, the Maibi, that means the female priestess, is a dominant feature of Sanamahism, and there are also male Maibas also. They mean male priest and the female priestess, and they are the functional part of the ritual called Lai Harauba. That is the pleasing of the god, like ritualistic festival generally. If you happen to visit Imphal, the valley area of Manipur during April and May, you would see every nook and corner, you will see all this observance of this ritual festival with loudspeakers and all the dance, music and all. All right. So every nook and corner of the Imphal Valley will see all this ritualistic festival called Lai Harauba. And they are essential part of this. And without them, this ritual festivals cannot be performed because they are essential part of they are ritual functionaries. All right, so on the one hand, you are keeping these women as the priestess, as the head. That means you are worshiping them. You are taking order from them. All right, so that means they are considered to be the so-called sacred. But are they really sacred? This is the question that I'm going to answer here. All right, and the interesting thing is the chance of becoming a Maibi is by being selected by the light. That is the deity, by the god. And she is considered to be a chosen woman, having supernatural power, communicates on behalf of RD people with the divine world. All right, so that means she has this connection with the God. All right, some sort of delivering, saying that okay, the God has given some kind of message, and you are acting as a as a medium. All right. So, and you have this references also. That means you call a maybe as ima. That means mother. That means you consider as maybe ima. Ima might be. That means consider as a respect. All right. As a respect, you refer to maybe as ima maybe, as mother. All right. But on the other hand, all right, this is on the other side. On the other hand, what we have in the structure in the society, we have a proverb. Stubborn women are destined to become maybes. All right. They are stubborn women. So this is the proverb that we have. This is the metaphor that we have. All right. On the one hand, we are worshiping them. We are taking order from them. They are the ritual functionaries. But on the other hand, you have the different interpretation. Stubborn women are destined to become maybe, and a maybe. All right, and if you talk about the Meitei social structure, this is very interesting. We have the royal clan, we have the common man, we have the underprivileged class. All right, and the Maibi, the priestesses would only be coming from the ordinary Meitei common family, and not from the Brahmin family, and not from the royal family. You see the structure? It might be a female priestess comes from an ordinary Meitei family, Brahman and royal lineage. That means the Rajkumars. We have, as I said, we have this tradition of the kings. So we have the royal lineage. So women belonging to this to the lineage of Brahman and royal lineage, they are not known to have symptoms that would indicate their potential to become Maibis. That means they are not possessed as such. So this is the kind of observations that we have. And interestingly, what happened is they, as I said, they are considered to be as I said, that means nobody, no single family or household wants their daughters to be a Maibi, because they try to, avoid. That means they maximally try to become. They do not want their daughters to become a Maibi. All right. Although on the other hand, there is respect. They call them as ima, as mother. They have the ritual functionaries, what you call status, but hardly any family wants to their daughters, their children, their daughters to become a Maibi. That's what I say. The structures there, there is like a breeze. There is a big gap. On the one hand, you consider them as a sacred, as a ritual functionary, but on the other hand, you consider them as somewhat stubborn, something who are not following that the normal way of life. All right, who are considered to be little outlaw type. So they are considered to be some kind of an outlaw. So friends, this is what I wanted to highlight some or give you some inputs on the given topic. So we have around, I think, 9 minutes, 10 minutes, because I want to continue on and on, because we generally give 3 hours lecture at one go in Vivigiri. So we have that kind of a capacity. I think Dr. Suchi must be knowing, because we have been trained taking lectures for 3 hours standing, shouting, all right, interacting with the students. But because of paucity of time, I can understand, all right, so this is part of the whole process. So, and so now I think it's open to, if you have any queries, because we have only 9-10 minutes. So I think, yeah, Suchi can take over, yes.
So students, please raise your hands and put your questions in the chat box. We had one person who was waiting.
We had one question from Latika in between.
Yes.
Can I?
Latika, can you please unmute yourself, and Malika would take over from here?
Yes. Latika, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Yes, good evening.
So my question is that if the society gives the gifts to a child on the basis of being a boy or a girl, should it be called discrimination on the basis of gender?
So that's very interesting. So what do you think? Do you think it discriminated? So that means it's a construct. All right. So it is the way we look at. If we think that this is not something we accept or something which we don't accept, all right. So because as I said, it's a construct of the society. It is a construct of the people living in that particular society. So it's not a question about good or bad. If the family wants, if the families accept that, then well and fine. But if there may be some family, okay, who may be against that, okay, that means let the time grow, let the child grow up and do whatever he or she wants to. We should not enforce them. We should not enforce them. We should not force them to take up this or that. All right, let he or she decide. So that is another way of looking at. So, but there's no good or bad. It all depends on the society that one is there, that the kind of family that one is in. All right. So it all depends on the kind of construct that one has. So there's no question of good or bad. All right. So, so I think Latika, this is fine.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay.
We have another question from Navpreet Kaur. She's raised her hand. Navpreet, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Hello, sir. Sir, my question is how can we overcome gender stratification? As you said, this is a rigid layer which has been formed in society. So, how can we overcome this?
When you talk about stratification, all right. So, I mean, I generally say that social stratification is very important. You need to have division of labor. I mean, I'm not, I'm going not like, talking about other things, but division of labor, when society need to be stratified in the sense, but everybody should have access to minimum social security. All right, that means everybody cannot become a doctor. Everybody cannot become a lawyer or a police officer or an IS officer. That means if everybody becomes an IS officer, then who will do the farming? All right, so in that way, stratification, there are functional part of it, there are dysfunctional part of it. But all right, so coming to your question, all right. So when you talk about this stratification, all right, so it all depends on the society. That's what I say. We need to bring awareness, not to the society at large, but to the individual, to the family. It starts with the family. So when you talk about the kind of things that you are hearing, the kind of incidents that you are saying or that you are experiencing, and you must have discussed with your teachers or in the class also. So everything starts from the family, because family is the fundamental social institution. So whatever you experience within the family, because as a student of sociology, I proudly say that this family plays a very, very important role, because it is the kind of training, the kind of experience, the kind of socialization you have within the family. If you see, suppose if I give, vividly, if I give an example, if your father treats your mother well, respectfully, all right, with respect, all right, there is good communication, there is good dialogue, there is good understanding, all right, so then definitely the child is watching every day and day out. So whatever is happening within the family, the child is observing. As I said, child is like, it's like an artificial intelligence. She or he knows everything. Everything goes inside. And he or she will also vomit sometime, one day. That means whatever he or she is watching, she will also try to experience that. All right, so if I have to answer to your question, when you talk about gender stratification, how we could bring change in terms of gender stratification is, all right, we need to make awareness, we need to have an understanding, all right, we need to respect, we need to create space to everyone, irrespective of gender, all right, respect one another, give space, all right, so these are very, very important things that we need to observe or do at home, within the family. Then definitely I think there could be change happens within the family, then slowly the society will change. This is what I think.
Thank you, sir. Tenzin has also raised her hand. Tenzin, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Okay, Tenzin, yes.
Hello, sir. This is Tenzin, third year English honors.
Okay, Tenzin, you are from which place? From which place?
Himachal Pradesh.
Okay, Himachal. Okay, great.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I have this query.
Yeah, go on, carry on.
Yes, I wanted to ask that, people from Northeast, and especially people with our facial features, like when we go out in India for our further studies or for a job or anything,
right?
Like we usually face discrimination, right? And especially it's worse for the females.
Right.
So does the gender thing include in here, or is it just a racial thing?
No, definitely. So that means, to put it bluntly, so that means people you were mentioning about with the physical, Mongoloid features and all. So definitely you have this racial discrimination. But being a woman and being from the Northeast or being from that particular hill areas, so that means you have double discrimination. Being a woman, being from the Northeast or being from the hill. So there are instances. So that means I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm not generalizing that everyone has like, everyone faces such kind of discrimination, but there amounts to be some sort of discrimination. That means double discrimination in a sense. That means being a woman, then being from the so-called non-mainland, if I can use. All right, so for non-mainland. So that means there is, all right, there is. But for me, like I've been here in Delhi for quite many years. I think it has been almost 24 years. All right, so what we need is we need a sort of excel. I mean, I'm just because being a student, I mean, you're all students, now you will be going for higher studies and now you will be interacting with not many people and all. So definitely this, what we need is exchange of like, no, dialogue is important. Exchange is important. Communication is important. All right. So once we understand one another, it's not that, okay, I mean, I'm just sharing since Tenzing has raised this question. So that means the problem is that we from the Northeast try to be like aloof. That means we try to be like, some sort of a kind of like, I mean, within our own, like what you call world, cocoon world. All right, that means we do not want to enter, we do not want to come out generally because of my experience. So, but the thing is, we need to interact. We need to like, have friends. We need to have like participation. All right, so that means so that one can understand one another. If we do not have interaction, if we do not have like, participation, then there is a difficulty understanding one another. That's why we need to have exchange of ideas, exchange of cultures, all right, and understanding one another. So that, I mean, so it will take time, definitely, I mean, to understand, to bring about an ideal, so-called the ideal society or the ideal structures, but definitely then there is no harm in like, trying to, because I feel that, I mean, when I'm just here, when I went to Mumbai for the program, I call up the taxi guy, okay, bhaiya, like, no, I'm waiting in the ICC guest shop, please come, like, no, and pick me up, I'm ready, I'm at the gate. Then the taxi driver came and said, sir, एक बार पूछूं? मैंने पूछो, एक बार नहीं, दो बार पूछो. ठीक है, तो उन्होंने बोला, सर, मैं तो लग रहा था आप बिहार से होंगे या यूपी से होंगे. All right, so that means because I have been here in Delhi and interacting with my friends from Bihar, from UP, so that means ultimately that means I could see that, okay, that interaction is also happening. Because that's why, I mean, this is not something, this is real thing. That when he says that, okay, sir, मैं तो लग रहा था कि आप बिहार से होंगे या यूपी से होंगे, पर आप तो निकले नॉर्थ से. तो मैंने कहा ठीक है, मैं दिल्ली में बहुत साल से रह रहा था इसलिए. So that means what I'm saying is that kind of interaction, that kind of understanding one culture is very important. Until and unless, if you also do not understand other culture, and if the other also do not, how will they understand? That means there will be understanding when you have what? Interaction. When you have understanding, we have dialogue. So that is very important. All right?
Thank you, sir. We have another question from Nandini.
Okay, Nandini, yes. I think this should be the last one because it's already 5:01, huh?
Nandini, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Because I should not eat up the others' faculties, other resource persons' time.
No, sir. Nandini, are you there?
Yes, Nandini.
We can move on to next question, please.
Okay, next question, yes.
Good evening,
Nandini,
sir.
are you there? Yeah, Nandini.
Sir, good evening. So my question pertains to the fact that in the beginning slides where you were telling us about the basic structures and concepts, you just mentioned female and males, and there wasn't any mention of the trans community as general. So I just wanted to know that was it a conscious choice or what?
Okay, that's very, Nandini, I mean, it's very smart. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, actually, I was not, because it will be very difficult for me to again cover, because there is another scholarship that needs a lot of like, time and need to be there. Definitely, I agree that, okay, transgender, the third gender, I mean, I mistakenly, when I talk about the second, I mentioned about the third gender, it came out because it was in my mind. So I also thought that, okay, somebody may raise this question also, Shai, why are you talking about the third gender or maybe the transgender? All right, but definitely, but I'm not denying that, okay, there is very much existence, right, their existence. So we need to discuss about them also. When we talk about the gender, this is very important. I think Dr. Soshi also take note of that because students are also like, observing and they are also trying to understand the idea of gender. So we also need to understand a kind of an interaction on this set of gender also. So for me, I think I should end here. All right, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for your patient listening and for being part of this, lecture. Thank you so much.
Sir. Thank you so much. And we are really honored to have you here. And students, as you know, that I was privileged enough to, I'm still privileged enough to be his students. Sir is there at Vivigiri, and anybody who is interested in the subject of labor and Northeast and employment relations must go and take Sir's support if you want to go for further studies or you want to make a future plan in having a profession in labor relations. And Malika, can you just end the...
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, sir, for this informative lecture. It has enlightened us on the issue of gender justice and equality from the Northeastern viewpoint. I'm sure, like me, many other students have learned a lot about the Northeast today. We would now bring the lecture to an end before we proceed to the next lecture, which will be chaired by Ms. Laura Prabhu. Thank you so much, sir, for being here with us, and to the students for being here. Okay. We will now continue into the next lecture.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.